Welcome to the Trent England Show. Thanks for watching this Thursday. We had so much fun yesterday with Phil Gover that I decided to have another guest on the program today. Curtis Shelton is with me. I talk about you all the time on the show.
Oh, I appreciate that.
But you know, I figured we should have you on here and let you. Yeah, it's great to have you here. Curtis, of course, is our budget guru at the Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs. If you want to know something about the state's economy, about the state budget, Curtis is the guy to ask, and that's what's going on right now, right? The Senate passed the budget bill yesterday.
That's right. Yep.
And then I guess the House may hear it.
Goes to the House. I think possibly today. I'm not sure exactly.
I think House committees today and House floor tomorrow.
That's right.
And they're really serious about getting out of town.
Yeah, they seem to be real excited to leave as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, not surprising with as many people as have challengers in elections.
Yeah, that's right.
Or the ones who just aren't running again, and you know they're termed out, or they just chose not to file, and when they're done, they're kind of done.
It's over. Yeah.
So, well, let's talk, Curtis. Let's talk first about the state's economy, because I mean, people lose this. This is why I love going back to the blog post that you've written at ocpathink.org, where you have compared the effects of changes in tax rates to changes in the economy and looked at unemployment and just put this data out there for people, because over and over again you hear this assumption that, well, it's just all about tax rates and the economy is sort of irrelevant, and you know the budget's either good or bad based on how much the government is trying to extract from the people, and that just doesn't, I mean, it's part of the story, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, tax rates definitely have an impact on state revenues, obviously, but the economy itself is a much larger driver of tax collections. As Oklahoma's employment, skyrocketed, 2015, 2016, as the oil recession hit, tax collections obviously fell down, and then as that's rebounded, even though tax rates haven't increased, collections, you've seen a huge increase in collections despite the tax rates themselves not having changed much.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because so many of the conversations, people will refer to, well, these tax cuts, and then we had budget problems. The tax cuts were mostly back at the tail end of Brad Henry's administration, right?
Exactly.
I mean, there's not even a correlation, let alone causation. Let's pop up a couple of the charts. You prepared these for us. We have got what we've got: growth revenue, or gross receipts versus appropriations, because this is an important point you always make. There's a difference. We're going to talk about the state budget today, but that's really what side of this?
Exactly. So gross receipts is the total tax collections that the state gets, and then the general revenue fund, which is what makes up most of appropriations, is about half of that. So as the state's taxing whoever on whatever they're doing, some of that money is siphoned off directly to state agencies for whatever reason, and then part of that goes to the general revenue fund, which is what the legislature uses to appropriate the money out however they see fit.
So we're gonna talk about the appropriations budget that was in the Senate, in the House, and that is less, or about half of
half. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So I guess the budget is important, but the whole picture is really important too.
Exactly.
So so the other numbers that we have is 2017 versus 2018. What does this chart show?
So this shows kind of what we were talking about earlier about how as the economy grew, so did gross receipts as well. So from the year to date, as of now, we've collected $8.7 billion in gross receipts, and that's an increase of $829 million as of the same time period of last year. So it's an 11% increase compared to last year. And this is after all the talk about the doomsday scenarios, like what are we going to do without, jacking up tax rates, and without, obviously there was some that just passed here about a month ago, but most of that, obviously none of that affected this year's budget, and we've still seen almost $1 billion increase in tax revenue.
I mean, again, I just think this is so important. And, I mean, I know that sometimes conservatives overplay the economic effects, just like liberals underplay the economic effects and overplay the effects of tax rates. It just, I mean, if we want public policy that makes sense or debates that make sense, we got to understand how all this stuff works together.
Right, and it's not to say that the tax changes didn't have any effect. They've had almost 25% of the increase was from law changes, but a lot of that time that's overplayed because people like to think because we've increased revenue because of the tax changes, when in reality it's only about a fourth of the reason we've increased revenue.
So let's look at the budget for next year. I know we've got that document loaded, so we can pop that document up. And I want to start by just going all the way down to the end of that and showing viewers the total increase, right? So going from what was it last year to this year?
Yeah, so it was about 6.8 billion last year, and now it's going to be 7.5. So
Okay.
we're looking at a $743 million increase, which again is an 11% increase.
Yeah, it's a double-digit increase. It's a big increase
Absolutely.
in state spending.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's scroll back up in this, and we can look at just some of these agencies. And again, this isn't the final budget yet.
Right.
But it probably will be.
Yeah, I mean, there might be some minor changes here and there, but for the most part, this is what we're going to be seeing next year.
So I guess just we can start up the top. This is, as people can see at the top, General Appropriations Bill, Senate Bill 1600. That's the budget bill. If people want to go to the legislature website and look at this, I mean, that first line, that's the big one, right?
Yep, that's right. So education saw a $480 million increase from the big changes that we just saw about a month ago. And what's crazy is a lot of people say, Oklahoma doesn't fund education at all. And we can debate whether or not, if this is enough, whatever enough is, but education makes up almost 40% of the total appropriation. So 40% of every tax dollar that goes to general appropriations is going to education. Yeah,
and almost, I mean, what is that there? I'm squinting at my paper. It's almost a 20% increase.
Yeah, right.
From last year to this year. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money.
Absolutely.
So I guess other things we see on there, career tech. Let me hop on my hobby horse for just a minute, because career tech, so this is, I think, one of the greatest examples of your point about gross receipts versus the appropriations budget. So career tech here is going from almost $112 million to $124 million, another double-digit increase. But they get, I mean, the numbers that I have seen from a couple years ago, for every $1 here, they get about $4 more from property tax.
Right, exactly.
Which, I mean, so even this doesn't show how much money gets spent on a lot of these pieces of our education system in Oklahoma.
Exactly, and the same is actually true for just the education budget in general. Department of Education, you saw here. So last year they got $2.4 billion in appropriations, but the total budget was close to $8 billion. It was over $8 billion actually. So, yeah, a lot of the money you see here is definitely not the total picture that you'd get if you take everything into account.
I mean, again, this is important because this is, I guess it's the most discretionary.
Right, exactly. This is, the legislature has the most control over this. They decide exactly how much is going to each agency. The other things go directly to the agency, so there's not as much oversight over how exactly they're spending those dollars. Federal, which has some strings attached to it, but not all of it does. There's still some state tax collections that go straight to agencies.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I think I shared this on the radio show last year, but I remember talking to someone who worked in career tech, and she said, we don't get paid that much, but we have the best facilities and computers, and we always have more stuff than we need, and we get to give it away to schools and other places. And it's because the property tax dollars for career tech can't go to salaries. They can only go to these other things. It's just, I don't know. To me, it just drives me back to, like you're saying, this isn't the whole picture. And when you see the whole picture, you realize there's a lot of distortions.
Absolutely.
So let's scroll down this list here a little bit more. Transportation gets a 7.6% increase here. OMES gets a big increase, but you were saying that it looks like part of that is just some shifting.
Right. So if you looked at just this, you'd see that the Department of Commerce actually has a cut, but you've been hearing a lot about how no agencies have received a cut. The reason for that is because OMES has taken over some of their bond obligations. So some of the money that was going to them to pay off those bonds is now going to OMES to pay off that same bond. So that's the reason for the large decrease and increase, mostly for OMES and the Department of Commerce.
Okay. So that's a good. There's no way to know that from just looking at this document. Right. So Curtis, that's why you're here. You can explain all the complicated stuff to us here. I noticed the space industry gets our Oklahoma space program gets an increase of, it's not a huge increase, 4%.
Yeah.
We've got the healthcare agencies get almost a 9% increase.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. They're trying to make up for some of the money that was lost previously due to, financial mismanagement at the agency. Almost $140 million was cut or was lost due to federal money evaporating, essentially.
Well, and I guess one thing that's not captured here as we look at this budget document is money that has already gone to the agency, right? I mean,
right. Yeah. There's a
true?
supplemental appropriation for fiscal year 18 that isn't included in this fiscal year 19 increase.
Okay.
So some of that money was already appropriated, which is partially why even though we've had a surplus, we had an increase in revenue. We were told there was a shortfall earlier in the year because we started out in the negative because of these supplemental appropriations that are going to the previous year.
So really, there's even more of an increase in here. Okay, I think that's really good for taxpayers to know. And just continuing through this budget document, Department of Tourism and Recreation gets a double-digit increase, which I was fascinated by that.
Right.
In a conservative state, you might think that that would not be a high priority agency. Department of Environmental Quality gets almost a 15% increase. So even, I mean, we've heard a lot about education, healthcare, mental health, criminal justice, but even some of these other agencies are getting pretty good increases.
Yeah, exactly. You hear most about, like you said, corrections for some of the new reforms that are coming in, and then the huge population we have in the criminal justice system. But even, like you said, tourism and environmental quality agencies that you never hear about are still getting massive increases.
So then we do move down to the Department of Corrections. Department of Corrections is another one of these big chunks of the budget. I mean, people may be surprised to see just the dollar figures we're talking about here, going from, what is that, almost $483 million up to $517 million for next year.
It's close to a $40 billion increase.
Yeah, that is not chump change by any means. Other double-digit increase, the District Attorney's Council gets a big chunk in there, the Court of Criminal Appeals, and ABLE, the alcohol beverage folks.
Yeah.
I guess.
I believe some of that is due to the increase they're going to see in the amount of applicants for liquor licenses due to the state question 792 that it opened up, grocery stores to sell, higher point alcohol,
that's right.
things like that.
People will be able to buy real beer in the grocery store out of a cooler starting in the fall.
Yeah, they will. Yeah.
That'll be
we'll do football season. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. We'll do a special show when that becomes. Maybe we'll do a show from a liquor store refrigerator.
Perfect.
Something never before seen in Oklahoma. Yeah. So I guess that walks people back to that total. I mean, just to remind folks, an 11% increase.
That's right.
So that is, and again, mostly because of growth in the economy.
That's right.
Well, anything you want to add, Curtis?
I think we covered it pretty well. That's about all I had for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think this gives viewers, I think, a good walk through this budget document. We will share this online, thanks to our friends over at NonDoc. Actually posted this online real quick and let us go through all this with you here on the program. So thanks to them. Thank you so much, Curtis Shelton, for joining us on the program today. If you missed the show yesterday with Phil Gover, you should go back. Now that you're done watching this important show, you should go back and watch that program. I thought it was just fascinating talking about education and talking about this charter school that Oklahoma City Public Schools refused to allow in Oklahoma City. Now it goes to the State Board of Education, which I anticipate will approve it. But I was really interested in what Phil had to say, talking just about diversity in education and really trying to make education in Oklahoma fit our different communities in Oklahoma. And I'll admit, I had a lot of questions and going into the program, and Phil answered them all for me at least. And if you have other questions, you can pass those along. We'll talk about them on future programs. A reminder, we are going to take some time over the summer and talk about the Constitution, because I love to talk about the Constitution, and I know a lot of our viewers do. And if you have questions or topics you want us to cover on the show, go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/Trent England Show, facebook.com/Trent England Show, or you can go to the OCPA Facebook page, send us a message so that we don't miss it. Send us a message and share your questions or your topics. If we use one of them, I'll send you a free book. So I'm not sure which one. I got a big cabinet full of free books. So I'll send you something interesting as a thanks for helping us fill out the programming over the summer. Remember, you can follow us, facebook.com/Trent England Show, iTunes. You can find the whole archive at ocpathink.org. We're on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Trent England. We're also on SoundCloud. We're on Stitcher now. We're all over the place. Thank you for watching the Trent England Show. We'll be back one more day, closing it out tomorrow. Thanks for watching.